Today on CityCast Nashville, it's the day before the election, and joining us is one very busy man, Nashville's own Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Alongside our beloved executive producer, Whitney Pastorek, we ask him to give us his final pitch on the Choose How You Move transportation improvement plan before we head to the polls tomorrow. He also shares his thoughts on how policy proposals from the Trump and Harris campaigns could impact Nashville, as well as his hopes for the next 4 years, no matter who wins. It's Monday, November 4th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about.
Freddie, I know we don't have much time with you, so we probably will dive right in, but I did want to give you the opportunity to welcome our new host, Marie Cecile Anderson.
Hello.
Do I have to take advantage of this opportunity?
Coming in hot. I love it.
You're always so hostile when you come on here.
Dude, I've got receipts. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thanks, Mayor. Let's go. The clock's running.
What's up, Freddie? All right. That's how I want to start. It's cool. We're keeping it real.
Is that real?
Sorry, Your Majesty. All right. Well, hello, Mayor Freddie O'Connell. For the sake of not letting this sound like every single interview you've done as of late, we really do want you to remove your mayor hat because before you were mayor, you were just a dude.
Yep.
Advocating for alternate forms of transportation. Go bikes. So let's just pretend we're going to set the scene. We're just hanging out on your porch, drinking a beer, talking about transit. What is your last ditch effort on selling me the transit referendum?
Yes.
Again, we're just sipping a beer. What kind of beer would you be drinking?
Whatever somebody last left at my house as a result of a BYO kind of situation.
Oh, love it.
I think last time Whitney was on my porch, she had, what did I have? A bearded iris, maybe?
You offered me a bearded iris. It was delicious.
Ooh.
A home style.
I think there was also maybe a Corona.
A Corona did make an appearance, but we both declined to drink it.
All right. So you're just hanging out with Whitney like you do always. Let's just be a fly on the wall and hear y'all talk.
She's already sold. This is easy.
No, okay, Freddie.
But
focus.
I'm not.
You know what we're asking? Let's say Marie's not. Let's pretend Marie didn't vote last week. You're just a normal guy. You are Freddie O'Connell, and someone who is not Mayor Freddie has proposed this transit referendum, and you want your friend to vote for it. How are you explaining this to them?
So, hey, friend, the reason I'm thinking of running for Metro Council right now is because dedicated funding for transportation and infrastructure is something this city desperately needs to pursue. We have been missing out on billions of dollars of our own tax money going to fund transit systems in other cities. And we are saddling anybody who is transit dependent in this city right now with having to go downtown for every single trip. We are leaving our corridors completely broken, meaning we're failing our small business networks. We're disconnecting people from our schools, parks, and libraries. And the status quo is not a sign of us acknowledging that we can do better, which we can.
You sound like you were really fun to hang out with.
It was a lot of fun to hang out with.
Were you DJing back then too?
Not a lot.
I just got in the mail my first mailer that says to vote no against the unfair transit tax. I have it right here. And at the very, very top, it says, they keep telling us what's good for us. And I think that they're referring to is you. So I'd like to ask you.
Well, this is interesting because the majority of Nashvillians told us this is good for us. I mean, we didn't invent this out of whole cloth. We've come into office with every mayoral candidate agreeing that dedicated funding was necessary, that a majority of voters are ready for dedicated funding. And in fact, imagine Nashville validating that, the Vanderbilt University poll validating that. I mean, this is something that has been popular in the city for well before I got here.
Well, what do you say to the people that claim that they, meaning government, thinks they know better?
There are some people out there for whom the status quo works apparently acceptably well, and we're not advocating for them.
Oh,
love that.
There are people in the city who need us to do better.
Right.
No, I think that's a really good point, that when you say you're not advocating for them, you're not being hostile to them or saying you're not representing them. You're just saying, if you don't need this, fine.
Right.
It doesn't need to be for you. Will benefit you in other ways.
That's the most amazing part, is even for the people who are opposing this, they'll still get a benefit from it.
Right.
I mean, I am sure that anybody who's reclaiming 10% of the time in their lives when this gets successfully implemented will quietly appreciate it.
And what do you say to the folks who think it unfairly burdens low-income residents? Because that's a big thing that's on my mailer.
It's very interesting that the yard signs seem to have the greatest density in the highest net worth parts of town.
Right.
And so maybe it's not us that are telling people what's good or bad for them.
And that's interesting, because it was rumored at the time that the highest wealth areas of town actually killed an earlier attempt at light rail back before I moved here, right? The train.
Oh, are you talking about the AMP, Whitney?
The AMP.
Apparently, even long ago, there was a true rail effort back when I think Phil Bredesen was still mayor. And again, I think you've seen the urgency of this and the demand for it increase over time, which is why there have been times in Nashville's history in the past quarter century, even where this may not have been something that was clearly popular. But by the time I had the opportunity to be participating in this conversation, it was clearly, repeatedly, demonstrably popular to pursue dedicated funding for transportation and infrastructure.
If I were to say to you, it feels to me, Lowell Whitney, just a resident of East Nashville, that a lot of the things we need in this city, whether it be dedicated funding for transit or a change to our missing middle housing zoning policy, the wealthy people who have their big, beautiful single-family homes and sidewalks and their nice big cars seem to be saying, we don't want that, which leaves the rest of us in the dust. How would you respond to that?
I am lucky to live in a neighborhood where I've got several neighbors who are still around me who lived there before I did, and the neighborhood has changed in the 17 years that I've lived there. And so now we also have some longer term people who I would not have maybe characterized as wealthy 17 years ago. But there are some people who have moved in that probably do have higher incomes, higher net worth. And so I guess I would say it this way. Everyone has the right to their own policy preferences. We have 35 different council districts. And I would argue that, especially with our satellite cities model, you've even got a hyper-local option to protect your own interests. If your preferences are that you want to only be surrounded by your neighbors at, a length of about an acre from door to door, you've got that right. I personally enjoy being able to sit on my front porch and engage with my neighbors who are walking their dogs on sidewalks past my house, and I've got that option available to me. I think it's a big city. It's 526 square miles. I think if we do our jobs right and well, we'll be able to find, places for just about everybody who wants to live here to be able to do so. And meanwhile, we're going to try to keep offering things to people who do need us to be there for them, whether it is prenatal and maternal support for people in communities of color where we've seen stubbornly high infant and maternal mortality rates, whether it is through specific financial counseling that is available free of charge that helps people find benefit gaps and take advantage of those, that we're helping people 8 to 80, and whether it is ensuring that we are able to not only build sidewalks that cover our entire priority sidewalk network, not only create a network of 24/7, 365 transit service delivery, but also connect it through community transit centers, meaning you don't have to go downtown, and not only upgrading 2/3 of our signalized intersections, but also ensuring that people have not just safety, but dignity as we do this.
All right, I'm going to put you down for not eating the rich. Freddie does not want to eat the rich.
It does not.
Some of my best friends are higher net worth.
Oh, brag, humble brag.
I try to, I guess it's the place where being maximally tolerant ensures that you get lots of interesting perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
I'm going to jump ahead. I want to ask, so the mayor of Nashville is a nonpartisan office. Tomorrow is election day. We really want to get your local take on the platforms of the presidential candidates. How would Donald Trump's proposals have a positive or negative effect on the lives of people in Nashville?
And fairness about where we are in terms of our national politics and how far we've departed from, what used to be platform analysis that was based in policies. I'm not confident I could tell you what the Trump policy platform is at this point. I mean, I know some about an intent to deport folks. I know some about tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these would be things that would have dramatically negative impacts on a number of Nashvillians.
Mm-hmm.
These are just objective cases about where the policy issues have been. I can tell you, having been in office through the tail end of the Obama presidency, then the full term of the Trump presidency, and then again the Biden-Harris presidency, it is clear that there have been many things that we have been able to take advantage of as a city over the past 5 years that were specifically a result of the Biden-Harris policy regime. That includes hugely transformative infrastructure investment, policies that have driven down inflation rather than driving it up, reduction in crime. There are so many national trends that are part of federal policy that we have been able to actively participate in. Now, granted, some of the end of the Trump presidency was disrupted profoundly by the arrival of COVID. And I will say, even at a local level, that disrupted our policymaking on the Metro Council. There were things that I had intended to do in a second term starting in 2019 that we simply ran out of time and capacity to do because we had to spend so much of that period of largely 2019 to 2021 doing disaster response and recovery, not just COVID, a tornado, a bombing. There were so many unexpected and profoundly devastating events that occurred in a short span of time that it's hard to fully characterize it. But I will say, in the periods of overall stability and looking at 3 different presidential administrations that have been active in my period of local public service, it's easy to say that the Biden-Harris administration has been an easy, constant, and active partner to Nashville.
And I will point out that the Nashville Banner ran a story last week talking to a lot of our local law enforcement, the TBI, the sheriff's office, as well as MNPD, about the mass deportations that you mentioned earlier, Freddie. And all of them seem to have the response of, that is not our responsibility. Do you agree with that? Do you feel that it would be your responsibility to assist a presidential administration with something like a mass deportation?
No, and I would say from the standpoint of where we've been, our Department of Law and Chief Drake, I've heard both Wally Dietz and Chief Drake say, even in changes in state law, we're not turning our local law enforcement into ICE agents in that kind of scenario. But that doesn't mean, Whitney, I'm sure you recall back in the previous Trump presidency, multiple raids that occurred across Tennessee, and that was with ICE active on the ground. So it does, even if we know that our local law enforcement practitioners are not going to be, in some way, whether informally or formally deputized, it doesn't mean that there would be no impact.
All right. Marie, should we ask him about the flip side of the coin?
I think we shall. How would Kamala Harris's policy proposals have a positive or negative effect on the lives of the people here in Nashville?
So again, this is one of the things where I think it is great to be able to listen to closing arguments and try to discern what is out there in the land of policy priorities. My sense is that a Harris-Walz administration would continue the Biden-Harris focus on infrastructure, which is, again, one of the reasons we're looking at our transportation improvement program being on this year's ballot, is so that it is active while the window for participation in programs under the bipartisan infrastructure law and under the Inflation Reduction Act are still available to us as a city. Just this past week, we watched hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure announcements go out across America, and Nashville got $0 because these programs were ones that we are simply not eligible to even participate in because we don't have dedicated funding for transportation and infrastructure. This is why the tip is so important. We expect that priority would continue. I've been very encouraged to hear Vice President Harris talking specifically about housing as a federal policy initiative because it is so important. We were very lucky to have recently received a $5 million award under the Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing program. This is letting our housing division, the Metro Planning, do 3 important things, including creating a faith-based development institute, but also 2 companion programs that, again, are focused on the ability for us to more easily and more quickly deliver longer term and more affordable housing in a city that is growing and where cost of living has been stubbornly high and increasing over the last few years. This has been one of our top priorities as an administration. It will continue to be. I think you're going to see us locally focused very intently on and intensely on cost of living measures over the rest of this term. And to have federal partners looking at helping us with that is a big deal.
I do want to ask you about one more local race, if you'll allow it. You hired State Representative Darren Jernigan away from his seat in District 60 to join your administration, which is what caused the vacancy over there. Yes, Freddie, you're raising your finger.
I'm gonna disagree with that. He is still today State Representative Darren Jernigan. He did not leave his seat.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I appreciate that live fact check, Mayor O'Connell. State Representative Darren Jernigan chose to make this his last term in the seat in District 60 because he had the opportunity to. Yes, Freddie, you're raising your finger again.
That is not what
20-minute podcast,
Mr. Jernigan conveyed to us.
Oh.
He was already looking.
I'm going to just ask the question. I'm going to stop giving context to the question. Darren Jernigan used to be the representative in District 60. Now he's not. He happens to work for Freddie. Who knows how that happened? Who knows how that happened?
There is an open seat coming up in District 60.
And Democratic candidate Shondell Brooks and Republican candidate Chad Bobo, son of a retired bullet maker, are facing off. That's Old Hickory, Hermitage, Donaldson. Representative Jernigan was known for his bipartisanship. What, if anything, are you hearing from residents in those areas about their priorities in this race?
You know, this is what's actually been interesting to me. And I will say, for the sake of this conversation, my state representation is I am in House District 51. So Representative Afton Bain is my state House rep. I'm in Senate District 21. So Jeff Yarbrough is my state senator. I see Afton Bain regularly. I have appreciated her communication. I've appreciated her engagement a great deal. I've honestly been a little surprised that I haven't heard more about that race, even in spending time out in Donaldson, Hermitage, Old Hickory, up towards Goodlettsville. I'm not hearing as much chatter among people that I'm talking to in those areas about that House district race. I mean, I've read the coverage that's been there in the Banner and elsewhere, but I like from a voter standpoint and people talking to me as I'm out and about in the community, that race just doesn't seem to be getting the attention that some of the other races around the city have.
Well, neither one of them wanted to come on our podcast, so.
I was going to say, we wanted to talk to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We tried so hard. We never heard from either one.
Yeah. And I mean, same thing. I've heard a lot from Gloria Johnson and seen plenty of evidence of the U.S. Senate race that's underway as well. So I don't know what it is about House District 60. It's quite possible that both of those candidates are just turfing it out and, doing direct contact with voters and maybe less interested in opportunities to discuss the campaign directly.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, no matter what happens in the election, what do we want everyone in the city to pull together and accomplish in the next 4 years?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say I would encourage people to look at the sample ballot. Go to vote.nashville.gov. Our hope is that somewhere on the list of candidates and the idea that is at the end of the ballot, our transportation improvement program, there is someone or something that you are interested in voting for. If you know that there is a policy preference, if you know that whether it is the Supreme Court or infrastructure or gun violence or any of the other priorities that are out there, that there is a candidate out there, I will say it this way. I think it is bad for Tennessee to be stubbornly in 50th place among states for voter turnout. And I would love for Nashville and Davidson County to be an engine of overperformance in voter participation. We have more than 500,000 of our more than 700,000 Nashvillians who are registered to vote. And we will probably see more than 300,000 people participate in this election. But if you've gone to the trouble of bothering to register, I would say it is, again, worth just checking out that sample ballot, at least doing yourself the favor and personal service of exploring what is there, because reading it alone is that step that says, well, maybe it is worth voting. Maybe there is someone here who might more effectively represent my interests if I raise my hand and say, yes, I'm participating in the democratic process. So
that's awesome.
I think that is actually a goal for the next 4 years. Today is a great time to start because voter participation says there's voter engagement. It says there's a slight increase. If we see our participation go up, my hope is it's a sign of an increase in trust in not only just some level of governance and governing and politics, but that the democratic process is in fact meaningful. And I can say from sitting here that it's meaningful to me.
Thank you. I have to cut you off because we have a very important meeting at 3:30, but I want you to answer this last question in the 15 seconds that we have.
I'm gonna do 15 seconds on the continuation of that question. I'm gonna take a moment of executive privilege here and say I can be at 3:31, probably get to that meeting. Over the rest of the term, though, I want to come back to it. What we did in the state of Metro is something we're going to continue to do. There are so many important programs that either had already existed before I took office, or we have created or expanded or updated and enhanced since I've been in office. And it's very, very important to us, whether that is the property tax freeze and relief program administered for disabled veterans and seniors on a fixed income in the city through the trustee's office, whether it is our financial empowerment center, whether it is the Nashville Strong Babies program, whether it is Reset, the program for seniors that helps with benefit mapping, whether it's Tech Ties, which offers free device access and technology training through Metro Action Commission and ITS. We want Nashvillians who could benefit from these programs to be doing exactly that. And so we're going to be continuing to build out the platform that people can use to know about and start to access these more effectively over the next several weeks and months. And so we're going to be focusing intently on cost of living. And now, Whitney, you may ask that last question.
In one sentence or less, if transit doesn't pass, what's your next step?
Strong support of the status quo.
Thank you, Mayor.
You can put your mayor hat back on. That was a really fun hang, dude.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the brewskis.
Appreciate y'all's attention to the democratic process. I look forward to this episode dropping just in time for people to vote.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And please, go vote tomorrow if you haven't already. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!